Kick back, warm up some leftovers, and get ready for some Sunday night football. Will the Ravens offense continue to be dominant without Mark Andrews, or can Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler provide Justin Herbert a much needed win in this crowded AFC playoff race?
Join us as we break down this single game matchup on Fanduel. From the overall matchup, a few different game scripting ideas, as well as an in depth analysis on each position.
Welcome to DFS Insights. I'm David Geistlinger, and I'm joined by my cousin, David Grant Jr. The teams up on the block are the Baltimore Ravens at the Los Angeles Chargers. But before we get to this game overview, let's go ahead and do a quick recap of the 3 Thanksgiving lineups that we provided to you guys.
Yeah, overall, it wasn't too bad of a day for me. I did surprisingly make most of my money on the wild Green Bay versus Detroit game. Don't get me wrong, I in no way predicted that outcome. It just so happened that I had faith in Jordan Love and had the right combo of a couple other guys that helped make some money. And I somehow lost money betting on the 49ers Seahawks game, which is, the 49ers are my favorite team since birth. So that was quite interesting. How'd your day go, David?
Uh, Eerily similar. The Green Bay Detroit was obviously my best matchup. Being a Green Bay fan, I did throw in some lineups that favored Green Bay, even though I predicted getting smashed by Detroit's running, and apparently we held them down, both Gibbs and Montgomery. Those kind of the lineups where I just had like more of a Green Bay focus, did pretty well. So other than that, just too many weapons on the other teams that I went one way and the team decided to go another, and I'm pretty sure that's just DFS.
Yep, pretty much. And yeah, especially being a Niner fan. I mean, talk about having literally 100 offensive weapons to choose from. You can't, too many mouths to feed, and you can only feed so many. And yeah. Anyway, how about we take a look at the matchup we got for Sunday night? This should be at minimum at least a good game to watch.
As we said, Baltimore at the Los Angeles Chargers, where Baltimore coming in at 8-3, Chargers 4-6. So in this highly contested AFC, field, it just seems like it's do or die right now for where the Chargers at 4-6. I mean, even sitting there, it seems like they're going to have to win out to even, potentially compete for a wild card. Because I believe their Chargers are in the Kansas City, so I don't think they're going to be winning, the division for them. So they would have to get a wild card, and right now it's, I believe the AFC North is pretty much locking up that thing. But it looks like, surprisingly, Baltimore's only favored by 3 points here. I figured, sitting a little bit. With an 8-3 record, they'd be favored just a little bit more, especially with the Chargers losing a few key weapons on defense and just not being as high octane offense as I thought they would be. I've done a few. I think we've actually covered the Chargers in a few previous videos, and it just seems like they haven't upheld to what at least I think they are. So. I mean, how do you see this match? I mean, right now the over/under sitting at 48, and that's with Baltimore, favored by 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like you mentioned, we've covered quite a few Charger games, and they seem to be pretty injury riddled, to be honest. I know Eckler missed some time. Palmer's been hurt. I want to say it was either Everett or their other tight end.
I think both, actually.
Yeah, you're right. It has been both. So injuries have definitely contributed to why they're 4-6. And then, as you mentioned, their defense. I'm sure that it must be also injuries because their defense is atrocious. They have no defense,
Uh, yeah,
and
Joey
you know,
Bosa is on the IR. He got injured during the Green Bay game, I believe.
oh, that's right. I should know that since the other Bosa brother is on the 49ers. Um, yeah, you are right. He did go out several games ago.
Hmm.
So, however, so now we have a Baltimore team that's also now injury plagued. Even though they're sitting at 8-3, um, their division is actually pretty crazy. The Browns are right behind them at 7-3, which who would have guessed with Deshaun Watson being hurt and missing games. So um, it's pretty crazy. They're 7-3, and whatever other teams below them is actually 6-4, I believe. And then like as you go all the way down, it's just they're all separated by one game. So technically, it's a big game. Baltimore does need to continue winning. Um, I am a bit surprised by the spread being only 3 points because of how bad of defense the Chargers play. So, um, I don't know. I have Baltimore by a touchdown. I mean, I know that I don't know that
Hmm.
that's kind of what I see happening.
Yeah.
And you know, go ahead.
Oh, so yeah. As far as Baltimore too, it's just I don't know. I think with the huge hit, the biggest injury coming out, from Baltimore losing Mark Andrews last game, I think that's gonna, you know, not to kind of, you know, be cliche or whatever, but kind of probably will hamstring their offense pretty big because I mean you can clearly see in the last game that Lamar Jackson was visibly upset when Andrews, obviously friend and teammate and stuff. He's worried about it, but you can clearly see that he was upset, being that that's his like basically his number one guy. Uh,
Yeah.
so they are a run heavy team, sitting at about they do run about 43% of the time. So they at least have that, and they have two players we'll talk about later, Gus Edwards and Keenan Mitchell, that are clearly see why they run the ball a lot. And then you also have Lamar Jackson, who we'll talk a bit more about breaking him down, but they do have the running ability. Surprisingly, their passer rating's a little higher than I was thinking, just kind of reviewing some of the stats, and their defense as well. I didn't think they were as high as a rating.
Yeah.
And then looking over, at the ratings that are coming from the Chargers, I don't see how the passing rating, Justin Herbert, maybe it's just the passer rating and the receiver rating are simply from Herbert to Keenan Allen, because
Yeah.
that's how I can see those are too high. But maybe these run plays are a little bit skewed over on the Chargers because Eckler was out for a while there in the beginning. So obviously, not having him probably, they leaned on the pass a little bit more. But now he's back, so we'll see how that plays out. But maybe enough of me talking about the players. Let's just head over there and start breaking them down. Or let's let's start with the. I'll let you start with the quarterbacks and see what you think of them.
Yeah. So when I was doing some research earlier today, surprisingly, Justin Herbert actually he's thrown 17 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. So I was quite surprised to have seen that. So then I did go ahead and try to take a look at okay, well, what kind of defenses has he played? And it happens when he plays a top 10, top 5 ranked defense. He did have his worst performance against the Chiefs, which they have a 4th ranked defense, at least they did at the time. Against Dallas, he still didn't do too bad. 2 touchdowns, 227 yards, and an interception. And Miami with the 6th ranked defense, I I know they have a good, you know, not secondary, but like they have good safeties. I know that much for sure. I don't know if you happened to catch the game today where Holland took it from end zone to end zone. I mean, it was at the end of the game. It was nuts. As the Jets threw up a Hail Mary, and Holland came down with it and literally went from end zone to end zone. It was nuts. Anyway, so Justin Herbert going. I just think the Baltimore's defense is too good. I could see this being not so great game for him. However, if I think that they're going to be trailing from behind, do I think he is going to be pretty pass heavy? That I do. So I'll definitely be having some exposure to him. And then as far as Lamar Jackson goes, it'll be interesting to see who picks up the snaps or the targets that Andrews was getting. You know, I'm predicting. I know that Isaiah Likely's the backup, and obviously those plays are drawn up for the tight end. I do think they're going to reduce some of those. I don't see Likely just stepping in and next man up, even though that's what they're going to tell you the mentality is. I predict that you'll see a little bit more passing to the receivers because they got some great receivers. I mean, I know Flowers is a rookie, but he's been playing great. Angelor, who used to be with the Eagles, he's great. So, and even Isaiah Likely, the backup tight end, he's a solid backup to have at tight end. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. What are your thoughts on the quarterbacks?
Yeah, the quarterbacks, yeah, for the most part, you know, I do agree. My biggest question, to kind of break it down, so the Chargers are basically last in giving up pass yards. They give up about 300 yards per game over the last, 9 games, 10 games. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, it'd be 11 games now. And they also give up. So the quarterback they usually go against, they're last in pass attempts. So the average quarterback throws about 40 times on them. So only issue with that is Lamar Jackson seems to be on the mid to higher, passing attempts around 25-ish seems to be his average. So do I see him passing 40 times? He came close here against Pittsburgh in week 5. So I don't see him being that, gunslinger. Can he throw it? Absolutely. Will he get up to 40 pass attempts in this game? I don't think so. I think they're going to be obviously leading in the game, so it's going to be more, I think, running. And my biggest question with Lamar Jackson is why is he at 17.5?
Yeah.
No, I mean McCaffrey is at 17K, so McCaffrey scored a touchdown, or if not 2, every game, since week 1, and he's less than Jackson. I mean, come on, that doesn't make any sense to me. But apples to oranges, I guess. Yeah, that surprised me when I saw 17.5 for him. That I think 16.5 for Jackson, and even 17K would help. But being priced more than CMC right now, who's probably hands down the biggest fantasy producer by far, is kind of weird to see. And Lamar's not really putting up, all-star quarterback fantasy points anyways. 23, 15, 11, 11. He had a good game here, 18, 10. So it's not like, he may be averaging mid-20s if you take into that. That's not like, it's good, but it's not, outstanding. Look, Justin Herbert's a better fantasy quarterback just based on the number-wise. His team's losing record, and maybe he's throwing more. 36, 40. So, anyways, rambling on about him. But Justin Herbert, I see him probably doing another 40. He's going to be behind, I have a feeling, so he'll be throwing it. He will be throwing it to probably Keenan Allen, more than likely. Ravens do have a pretty good defense. They're ranked first, only allowing basically less than a touchdown a game over the last 11 games. The average. So basically, you just count on maybe one touchdown a game to receivers, and they also are fifth, allowing only about 195 yards to the receivers. Pass yards. Pass yards. So that's pretty daunting for Justin Herbert. So, do they both lean towards the running backs in this matchup? And I'll throw it over to you to start off the conversation with the running backs. But knowing those facts, where Ravens are a run-heavy team, but they're going against a crappy pass attack defense, and then you have a pass-happy Chargers who are going against a pretty good defense. So do they run it more?
It's I mean, as I was looking at the average time of possession for Baltimore, I mean, it's clearly, and it's kind of the Harbaugh way. They want to control the clock and control the rhythm of the game, and they do that by running the ball. I am surprised to not, the rushing attempts for Lamar Jackson, to be honest, have kind of been all over the place. I mean, I've seen it as high as 14, but other times as low as 5. So it's kind of hard to bank on, what you're going to get from him from that perspective. He's only hit 100 yards rushing once this year. That was against a 25th ranked defense in Indiana. And again, I'm bringing up Lamar in the running back talk because, I mean, he's a top 3 running back quarterback. So the other thing is that when they played Cleveland, who's at the time the first ranked defense, he did have 28 fantasy points. I think that, one of his top 3 games. So to be going against a defense that is nowhere near the level of Cleveland, and now that he doesn't have his favorite target, does he run it more, kind of like you were alluding to? I could definitely see Gus Edwards having a big day. Vegas having the spread at only 3. If they're trying to say it's going to be a closer game, I do see some more passing being there. And I'll kind of do that once we get to our lineups that we give out for free at the end. Why I went who I went. Gus Edwards, super solid running back. I mean, he's been lighting it up the last, 5 out of 6 games. So he's really come on strong as of late. Definitely looks like a red zone type guy who's just, if they're, inside the red zone, the ball's going to him. And then, I mean, obviously Austin Eckler for the Chargers. I mean, he's a beast. There's no way around it. When he's gone up against good defenses, though, he has not done a single darn thing possible. When he played Dallas, he had 8 fantasy points. When he played Kansas City, he had 5 fantasy points. Those were ranked 3 and 4. Now, when he went up against Miami, who had the 6th ranked defense, and that was the first game of the season, or at least the first game he played back from injury, he had 24 fantasy points. But again, and then he played Green Bay and only has 6 fantasy points. I mean, he's been fumbling the ball a little bit. I don't know. Against Baltimore, I don't see him having a big day. So I'll be under the field on him. I do see the Chargers being down and needing to throw the ball. And even though, again, they're going up against a great defense, Justin Herbert has been efficient with only 5 interceptions all season, 17 touchdowns. What are some of your thoughts on the running backs?
I'm definitely with you with Lamar. I definitely thought he would be running a lot more. Having one game over 100, that doesn't really scream Lamar Jackson to me.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see, like you said, him losing that safety blanket and Mark Andrews. Does that put him in that spot to, do those design runs and things like that to get up? But at the same time, they do have two great running backs. Gus Edwards has been killing it, as you stated. He is the red zone target. I have it written down here. Last 2 games, 7 red zone tries, scored 3 touchdowns. Yeah, and I don't think the Chargers really have a stout run defense. So if they do get, down in the red zone, you can basically kind of, guarantee that Gus Edwards is at least going to get a few cracks at it. So hopefully, if you do go Gus Edwards, that is, I think, a viable option. But also similar to him, Keaton Mitchell, the rookie, he had 2 All-Star games coming in, but I know it's kind of dependent on his explosive playmaking ability, where he gets those long, crazy 30-40 yard run or something, and he got a touchdown. So last game he didn't do too hot against the Cincinnati Bengals, but I think putting him in, especially since he's only 8K, that's a fairly viable option to have. Austin Eckler, yeah, he's definitely come back. He seems healthy. Doesn't seem really any wear on him. How he didn't run all over Green Bay, only got the 6 fantasy points, is surprising. But he is averaging about 18 fantasy points when they play at home. If you look here, 19-5, 19-8, but he also had a 5 here and then a 6, but it averages out to about 17 or so fantasy points. So they are at home, so could we see a potential 17 game from him? I think if we do, then he'll definitely have the potential to be in the optimal lineup. But he does have, he's in the passing game too, so keep that in mind. It's just Baltimore has a pretty stout run defense, only allowing saying right here on some stats, it's 0.3 rushing touchdowns over the last 10 games.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So if you're banking on him getting a touchdown, it's going to be hard. So so the running backs, I clearly think the Baltimore Ravens have the edge here. But if you want to do, I could see me doing definitely a few lineups. I say a few lineups with Austin Eckler, just because obviously he is a very athletic, skilled player. However, with the price tag at 14.5 and the Baltimore's Ravens defense being as stout as they are against the run, it would have to be situational where I would plug him in the lineup to support that kind of money for him.
Yeah, for sure. That's my main concern, is the 14.5, and it's a boomer bust deal, and I think more often than not in this scenario he's gonna bust. That's just my opinion. But I've definitely learned, don't ever fully ignore anybody, because you never know whose day it is to step up. So all you can do is be over the field or under the field or at the field. So definitely don't ever just completely ignore anybody, as I've come to learn this season.
Yeah, well, speaking of boom or bust, moving over here to the wide receivers is where things are going to get a little more interesting. So starting it off here with Keenan Allen. I mean, this guy, I think 12 years in the league, 13 years in the league, and he's just killing it. Clearly the wide receiver, favorite pick here for Herbert. And I mean, he's there. He has the knowledge. He's been in the league a while. He's averaging over 100 yards, a game. He has, looks like 7 touchdowns. Fantasy points, he's definitely sitting at probably the low 20s per game. He was targeted at least, clearly see here, 16, 14, 9, 10.
I mean,
So
it's
you're
crazy.
you're you're basically in at least double-digit targets. Not to mention he's catching the bulk of them. Uh,
Yeah.
only issue is Baltimore is second against allowing wide receivers receiving touchdowns, and also third against giving up receiving yards to wide receivers. So I can clearly see why the Ravens are 8-3. It seems like their defense is pretty legit. I also have here moving down, I guess. Yeah, I clearly see for the Chargers, definitely him. The only other person, maybe don't hold it against him, Quentin Johnson. He could have probably sealed the deal against my Green Bay Packers. He did miss that. He dropped it at the end, and they could have that would have put him in the field goal range. So don't hold that against him. uh, I surely don't, for sure. But yeah, he's the wide receiver too, but he gets some targets here and there, but it doesn't see. He's kind of probably that touchdown or nothing kind of play here. Looks like only one fantasy game over 10 points. So as far as that, I believe this guy's a rookie, Jalen Guyton. Didn't look like he played against Green Bay. He might have been hurt. Yeah, it looks like he has a groin injury. So if you're thinking about playing him, definitely make sure. I'm going to say my sneaky pick, at least with wide receivers for them, would be this Darius Davis guy. I don't think he'll be getting a lot of targets, but he has the potential to get you a punt or kick return because he's their punt or kick returner. So he does have opportunities there. Now that's a long shot, obviously, but if you're looking at maybe that, that low-owned guy, in those larger GPP, larger tournament fields, then that could be a viable play because if he's not getting the targets, at least he has the potential to give you the touchdown from the punt returns, which they're few and far in between, but they do happen. Moving over to Baltimore, Zay Flowers, he was a full participant, so I don't have any doubt that he's playing. Definitely just keep in mind that it is his hip and he's a wide receiver. But he is their number one receiver. But like I said, Lamar Jackson's only throwing 25 times in game, so maybe he'll see a little bit more production now, probably that Andrews is gone, so keep that in mind. But it doesn't seem like he has that wide receiver one numbers anyways, so I'm hoping. On the other hand, it looks like Odell Beckham's having kind of a career resurgence here. At least the last 3 games, 2 touchdowns. He did lose a fumble, but the game he didn't get a touchdown, he got the receptions plus the yards to where it seems like the last 3 games he's getting at least double digits. So be wary. He is 10K, so you will need him to get you at least that over the double digit points there too. So but other than that, like you mentioned earlier, Aguilar coming from Eagles, he ended up with I think 1 target and a touchdown last game. He got a 37-yard touchdown, so he could be a cheap play, a valuable play. And also I believe Bateman had 1 target and a touchdown last game. So there are some lower priced players that could be a viable pick. So what do you think about these wide receivers group? And it seems like we have 6 to 7 to choose from in this matchup.
No, that's a big part is going to be getting the wide receiver correct, because as I think we both could probably agree, it's going to be run heavy from Baltimore. That's just their MO this season. Again, interesting to see with Andrews being out, who the targets are going to go to. That's a lot of targets to be spread around. And then, as you mentioned, I mean, I understand Flowers is definitely playing, but with the hip injury, when you get tackled and you catch the ball, you go down on your hip, you get tackled at your hip. So football, especially NFL football, has been very interesting to, when people have injury designations, and even though they practice all week and they're badasses and they show up and they play, uh, it, man, I just can't imagine the pain that he could be going through. We don't know the significance of that, but there's definitely a lot of receivers. If I think the Chargers are going to be trailing. They're going to have to throw the ball. Justin Herbert likes to throw the ball, so I think going him and then like matching him up with. It's tough to go Allen, even though that's his clear number one target. I mean, it's almost, it's borderline foolish not to go both of them if you go one. But with their prices, 16.5 and 15K, that's half your salary. And if you think the Chargers are going to lose, I find it hard for that to be optimal. I watched Mic'd Up for Baltimore's for last week's Baltimore game, and Odell went in like when they're in the locker room after winning, and he was getting them all hyped up, gave them a big talk, and then slid in the like he knows what it's like to win a ring, and that he believes in these guys, and was getting them all hyped up. I thought it was cool. Odell's hyped, so as you mentioned, he's coming on strong here as of late. I'll be interested to see, with this shoulder injury, how serious it was. I mean, I watched the last Baltimore game and I saw him clearly hurt. I mean, each pass, each time he was tackled, he clearly was in discomfort. So with him being injury prone, does he only come in if they're losing? Does he see minimal plays? There's just quite a few question marks. So, but I do think Aguilar from the Eagles now with Baltimore, he's healthy. He's a great player. He's going against the last pass defense in the league. They're ranked 32nd. I mean, the defensive is ranked 31st. So I could definitely, see where one of the other guys that maybe aren't superstars, well, I could argue he is a superstar. I mean, he's only 7,500 and where he ranks on the team. But with Andrews going down at 7,500, he is a phenomenal play to me. Even Bateman, he got his first touchdown last game. I'd be interested to see. His targets have kind of been hit or miss, but they have been going up arguably the last 3 games. 5 targets, 4 targets, and then he had 2 targets, but one of them was for a touchdown. So again, with the targets that Andrews, won't be seeing, it'll be real interesting to see where that goes. And then, as you mentioned, I don't see going lower than, I mean, I know you said Davis because of his special teams. I think that the Baltimore defense and just everything about Baltimore is just too good for that to happen. Bateman would probably be as low as I would go, but I definitely would have, exposure to any other wide receiver on the Chargers because they're going to be playing from behind most likely. So, besides, wide receivers, we could kind of jump over to the tight ends, which is definitely going to be interesting because, we got, obviously, Mark Andrews is done for the season. That's just a huge blow. I mean, that's as we've said multiple times, Lamar Jackson's number one target, his favorite target. So, will Isaiah Likely just step in and, we see his targets go way up? We have yet to see that. He doesn't have any touchdowns this season. At most he got target. I mean, at least he's been pretty efficient for the most part. I mean, 1 for 1 for 10 yards, 4 for 4 for 42 against Seattle, 1 for 1 for 5 yards against Cleveland. He did go 0 for 2 against Cincinnati. Sometimes I wonder what's actually considered a target, because does the ball have to be catchable in order for it to be considered a target, or if the ball's just thrown in his general area and they know the play was meant for him, does that count as a target? I'll be looking that up after the podcast, because as I've been watching some of these games, I've been quite interested to see what actually defines a target. Yeah, and then Parham and Everett on the other side. It seems like one of them has been injured. That both of them together, they've only played probably 4 games together. I mean, we've covered them quite a bit. If one's out, I know to play the other one. But for a second there, Everett had caught fire against like Dallas, Kansas City. I don't think he played against Chicago. And then again, they jump over to Parham after that. Yeah, basically 2 for 2 and then 4 for 6. So it's like, it's a toss up. If they're both in, it's anybody's guess. I know Everett was a full practice participation today, so it seems more likely than not he will play. Will he basically be the tight end 2 at that point because of the injury, where it's like, hey, get in there if we need you? I don't know. This game has a lot of question marks. What are your thoughts on the tight ends, David?
Yeah, likely, obviously, clearly the tight end 1 replacing Mark Andrews. So will Lamar use him like Mark Andrews? I can see obviously his targets will go up, but I don't think he's nearly the playmaker as Mark Andrews. So at 7,500, he'll definitely be in some of my lineups, just based on the price and the likelihood that he'll I just laughed at my own joke. That was embarrassing. That he'll be in, see the snap count. So the potential for him to get, that number called is there. As far as Everett and Parham, I don't know. I just see it as 50-50-90. It's like you have a 50-50 chance of picking the right one, and 90% of the time you choose wrong. Right?
Yep.
So, yeah, that's how I felt. I thought, when they were both, being used, Parham would be that red zone, being like, I think he's like 6'6", like, basketball player, and then all of a sudden Everett gets 2 touchdowns that game. And it's just like, okay, all right, Everett's clearly the number 1, and then Parham gets those 2 touchdown game. You're just like, all right, well, I'm not playing either of you guys. But at 7K a piece, at least I'm glad to see him the same price.
Yeah.
And that way I can basically, alter them as, I see fit when getting closer to game time to, they did say, he did practice fully Friday. So barring any news coming out, whether Parham's, going to be starting or whatever, they'll easily quick player swap on them. So nothing too more about the tight ends for this, but moving over to, the last one, the defense, special teams, and kickers. I don't think I have to go too much into detail about Justin Tucker. Dude can kick a field goal from
best ever.
Yeah, can kick a field goal from anywhere. So clearly, he has the opportunity, because I do see, Baltimore being able to move the ball down the field against the Chargers. So the likelihood that he's going to be either getting, an extra point or a field goal are highly probable. Cameron Dicker, I can see him getting more field goal attempts, just because the likelihood that the Chargers will, be able to get stopped more often. Now that's obviously barring that they get get down the field, but I see him maybe getting, you know, one, two, possibly 3 field goal attempts in this matchup. As far as the defenses go, I think if I had to choose, it would be Baltimore. With, you know, with Herbert throwing as much, the likelihood of an interception happening, and it seems like he does give up a few fumbles here and there. So the Ravens defense does have that potential, and they seem to actually be, averaging 4 or 5 sacks a game. So that helps out too. Even with allowing a few, 20 plus points, they're still getting 14. They only have 1 defensive touchdown, but it seems, well, last game they didn't have an interception or fumble, but the 2 previous games before that, and then they basically 6 interceptions in the last 6 games. So and 3 fumbles. So that's not looking too bad. So I see the Ravens being a viable defense in this. What do you think about these last 4 I say position / players?
I just was taking a peek at Justin Herbert, and when he plays a top 5 defense, he only has 5 interceptions on the entire season, and 3 of them came against top 5 defenses. So he's playing a top 5 defense. So I could almost guarantee 1 interception. He only has 1 double-digit interception game, which was against Kansas City. As you mentioned, as of late, he has had 2 fumbles in the last 3 games, and I mean that was against the Jets, who I think we could agree their defense is pretty solid. And then against the Green Bay Packers, Green Bay's been, their defense is stepping up out of nowhere. It's been quite interesting.
I'm afraid to say anything.
I know, right? I will definitely have quite a bit of exposure to the Ravens defense, especially knowing that, let's just assume game scripting that the offense is going to have to figure itself out without Mark Andrews being such a key component, that if it takes any type of getting used to, that means a little bit more, time of possession for the other team than what normally happens. And so that's a little bit more time for the defense to be on the field to make something happen. So I will have exposure to the Ravens defense. It would seem like an actual, if you were to ever go the Chargers defense, maybe in 1 lineup out of 100, maybe 1 out of 50, maybe like 2 out of 100, just because you're playing a kind of hurt and then new look Ravens team offensively. So but I am in no way endorsing the Chargers defense, so let's get that clear. And then from the kickers, as you mentioned, just plug in Justin Tucker. I think it's almost a free square for this game. I'll have a lot of exposure to him, and I know it says the game, this 3-point Vegas spread is a joke. I mean, I just don't see it being that close of a game. I think if Baltimore gets out to too big of a lead, I've made this mistake where I game script and I go the other kicker of the losing team, but they end up being down by so much in the 3rd and 4th quarter that they have to be going for a touchdown and not going for field goals. So you're losing out on those field goal attempts in the second half if your game script is Baltimore's going to dominate, which is what I do think is going to happen. So I have some exposure to Dicker. It won't be much, and I'll probably be overexposed to Justin Tucker.
Yeah.
So.
Well, speaking of the exposure, since I accidentally clicked on your lineup, let's go ahead and move over to your lineup and go ahead and break this down for us and what your thought process is in choosing it.
So I won't start with Lamar Jackson. I'm going to start with the other positions first. As I mentioned, Baltimore's defense. Um, you know, I'm a statistical person. Sometimes that gets me in trouble, and other times it makes me a lot of money. But as I just mentioned, it seems like when the Chargers play a top 5 defense, they seem to all play their worst games. Yes, can you look and find a couple outliers? Sure, but that's just what they are, outlier performances. So I'm going to bank on the Baltimore defense stepping up and doing what it needs to do to help them get the win. Um, Justin Tucker, because I do have some questions of Baltimore's offense. I mean, yes, they're down one major key player, but they do have a lot of weapons, and I've watched a couple of their games, and they're looking nice. So, um, I think Aguilar's actually could see a couple more targets, especially since he's been playing good as of late. Um, and at 7,500, uh, fitting in to trying to fit in a Lamar Jackson and a Justin Herbert automatically makes things a little tough. Um, I usually don't like to zero out the salary on any GPP. Um, However, at this point, I'd rather, just I want to provide a winning lineup, not necessarily the one that's going to take first. My goal is to at least have you double your money, which means the lineup just needs to make the money. So I'm trying to provide a lineup that will do that. Um, so I'm going Lamar Jackson because I do think he is probably going to have to throw the ball a little bit more if the game's a little bit closer. I think maybe there might be a couple other run plays. I mean, I don't know how Baltimore's going to respond losing Mark Andrews and some of these other lingering injuries with the other players that anytime during the game could flare up or something. So I want to be safe, which the word safe and GPP really don't go together. But and then I got Justin Herbert because even though he might be throwing an interception or two, I mean, he's only thrown 2 interceptions once all year. Uh, let's even say he throws one, he still could throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns. They're going to be losing in the fourth quarter. He's going to have to be airing it out. Will one of them, can Allen catch the ball? Sure, he's a beast. Can Parham or Everett catch the ball? Yeah. So to me, he's the highest fantasy producer for the Chargers. So that's why I actually started my lineup with him and then tried to build the best lineup going for Baltimore people was my thought process behind this. And naturally, out of everybody on there, Lamar Jackson I see scoring the most fantasy points out of anyone that's on there. So that's my thought process behind the lineup. What are your notes and thoughts on the lineup I got here?
Yeah, I was a little confused at first because I haven't seen this lineup prior to just right now. But why you went Herbert and the Ravens defense thinking that he was going to throw the interceptions because obviously he would lose the points there. But yeah, he will obviously hopefully have a few touchdowns so that could offset that.
Yeah, because an interception is only minus 1 point, so it's like it you know what I'm saying? And I've seen too many winning lineups where I thought the same thing. Like I've even seen the defense at MVP, and then seen the opposing quarterback or the same quarterback stacked down below. So it's like it's interesting, and I think that can also be what makes it a little low owned because it is a little outside the box. I mean,
yeah, well, I definitely see it. Even at zero, I mean, it's definitely a chalkier lineup, but being with it's I don't know. It's a little. I think it's pretty risky too because you're going with Lamar. So I think with him in the MVP, you're banking on probably a rushing touchdown, and if he does throw one, he's going to be hitting Aguilar, and that's I think risky in itself because that's a wide receiver 3 or 4 to get that. So no, I think it is. It's a good good solid one. It'll definitely be, duped, but I don't think it will be too heavily duped as you can make, more all-star players in a lineup.
Yeah, for sure. And I am trying something a little different, now that we've been doing this for quite a while, and I'm observing what is in some of these top lineups and just some ways of thinking outside the box of the way I would normally think. And it's again, I hate the fact it's zeroed out. I absolutely hate that. Like, my number one rule in GPPs is do not zero out the salary. You are guaranteed to be duped if you do, like, just most of the time. But again, I do think that this has high potential to be at least in the money lineup.
Nice.
I haven't seen the lineup you've cooked up. Why don't we take a look at?
Here we go. Let's find out what I got going on here. No, so I'll start at the top. Lamar Jackson. I think he's right now being. I think he'll be the MVP. Just I'm basing it again on his running ability. Starting to wane on that a little bit. I thought he had a little bit more running than just the 100 yard run, but like I said, I'm maybe banking on the fact that he might take it into his own hands now that Mark Andrews is gone. Or hopefully he throws it over here to his star wide receiver 1, Flowers. He's been doing, pretty good. Has been, dealing with the injury, so I'm hoping that doesn't bother him too well or affect him. But I have a feeling that since I have him in the lineup, that he'll probably get hurt again. Then obviously I had to throw in a running back, being that they are run heavy with Gus Edwards. So I'm assuming that he's going to get those goal line carries. But I can see Mitchell, and I'll probably do that as an alternative lineup. Move it down to Justin Tucker. I put him in there because I think he'll obviously get quite a few points this one, but I could swap Justin Tucker out easily for Keenan Mitchell, and then it would put my salary remaining at $2,500, which would be even more of a lineup. So I have that option for alternative lineups, and it'd just be easy swap. I don't really like to play too much with the kicker, but I wanted to leave the money on the table to make it a viable thing. But if I had to maybe choose an option that kind of has a chance to get maybe a little bit more points, might move up to Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver from there. So that might be another swap, but I'm just hoping Chargers do well enough to get into field goal range, and the Baltimore's Ravens defense, as strong as it is, holds them, and they're not down by a lot. Because if obviously you're down by a lot, they never go for field goals. Now that everybody seems like they want to go with what the analytics say, and if it's fourth and 5, you need to go for it or whatever now. So get a little harder and harder, to make a career as a football kicker when it's going to be like 4th and 30, go for it. So yeah, that's kind of my thinking. Just two kickers, leaving some money on the table. That's basically where I think the value will be. I think the 3 Jackson, Flowers, and Edwards will be probably the most or the most owned Ravens. And definitely Lamar will probably be the most owned MVP. So going the 2 kicker approach and leaving the 1500, hopefully that sets me apart enough to where if it is duped, it's not a lot.
Yeah. So at the top of the podcast, you had mentioned, we both were surprised that Lamar's 17.5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that will keep his MVP ownership possibly down a little bit more than usual, or do you think, the Lamar Jackson name in itself, screams MVP,
and see, that's the thing too, because I'm trying to get out of that mindset where it's like, yeah, I'm basing it on, I don't know. To me, Lamar Jackson, he's a good player. No, obviously he's a professional. He's a good player. But just if you listen to how everybody talks about him, it's like dude's won 13 Super Bowl rings, and it's like, sure. I don't even think he's won a playoff game yet. Like him, I think the one the Ravens won, he was hurt or something. So it's like, where is all this coming from? And then last year, like he was running, and then looking at his stats this year, I think he has 1 game over 65 rushing yards. So it's not, the Lamar of last year, and it's not like he's averaging 300 plus, passing yards either. So it's like his defense is, holding the players enough to where he can just, I wouldn't say do bare minimum, but yeah, so it's hard to go away from him at 17.5, but I've been wrong before, and with McCaffrey being at 17K, and he was, I think, out of the MVP spot. So
once, but
yeah, it's happened. So to me, it would be hard. It's hard to justify the 17.5 outside the MVP spot, just because you're looking. I don't know. He still has the run potential. I know it's there, and it's just I'm banking on the fact that he's gonna find it now that Mark Andrews is gone.
Yeah. So and see, that's funny because the way I saw it was like, now that Mark Andrews is gone, he might have to throw it, make more, more downfield targets. Like I'm sure his 20-yard plus targets, I can tell you without even looking at any stats, is probably on the bottom, at least the bottom half of the league, if not the bottom 10, because they are such a run-heavy team. And so now not having that, when you don't have a Kelsey or a Kittle, someone that really murders the middle of the field, and dumping the ball off, that now it's going to go to receivers that typically run longer routes. And hey, Lamar can throw him. He's accurate. He's a great passer. So that's the approach I took. And it's funny, and we both could be right. We could see him run more than usual and then make a couple great passes down the field. That's the whole. I honestly don't know what to fully expect without a Mark Andrews.
Yeah, no, and that's the problem too. So I'm banking on him taking it into his own hands, or passing it over to Gus Edwards or Flowers. So it's like, I think I have all my bases covered, and if he decides he wants to mess up, I got Tucker in there as cleanup. So it's like, to me, the picture is in my head and it's complete. But at the same time, this is DFS, and I don't think there's, in this puzzle, there's no straight edges. So,
I agree.
So trying to think outside the box here, and we'll see. I guess. That's DFS in a nutshell, right? Wait and see.
Hey, so. I like the 1,500 salary left. That's awesome. And again, I do like the 2 kicker approach. I wonder if that might be chalky. The only reason it wouldn't be is because of the 1,500. Leaving that on there definitely helps you stay away from the duplicate lineups. Mm-hmm. I would say if you were to take out Tucker and you could even go the Ravens defense. It's only 500 more, and you're still leaving 1,000 on the table. I think that's also a great lineup if I were to make a small change to it. I think, if I were to compare it to my lineup's missing Gus Edwards. He should be a staple play for everybody. And yeah, I would definitely recommend going Gus Edwards for sure. Yeah, that's a great lineup. I could definitely see that in the money and being way less duplicated than the lineup I provided.
So, but yeah, what do you guys think out there, and just let us know whose lineup you would put in, or or would you put in both, or if you have any comments, throw them down in the in the comment section below, and we try to respond to every comment, especially the earlier on ones, and if you need any advice or why we thought this, or where do we get this kind of thing, just put that also down. And also, if you do subscribe to our channel, please also mention that you did subscribe. We would like to shout you out, and as being part of the community. So just make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and the notification bell, so you don't miss any of these episodes. And before we get over to our predictions, I believe David has the announcement for another potential for you guys to win some free money.
Yeah, definitely. As we do with each Thursday night and Sunday night matchups, be sure to check the link in the description. There will be a link to a free 100-person tournament. If you put in a lineup and your lineup beats my lineup and beats David's lineup and takes first place, I know that those obviously all go hand in hand. If you take first, you most likely beat me and David, unless we tied. But if you do that and you show proof that you've liked the video and you're subscribed to our channel, I will personally Venmo you $100. Make sure to get into the tournament as soon as possible. It does fill up quick. It is open to the public. We don't do it privately, otherwise we'd have to message you and send a private invite to you. So the sooner you join it and get in there, the sooner you have a chance to win a free $100. And yeah, how about we hop over to these predictions? So
what are your MVP value pick and your final score? I'll let you start it off.
All right. My MVP is going to be Lamar Jackson. Shocking. I always seem to pick the chalkiest, obvious person. If it isn't, I'll just come out and say if it isn't him, I could see it being Gus Edwards. That would most likely be the other person. And my low value pick, I think Aguilar will still be pretty highly owned. I think going down to Bateman for Baltimore at 6,500. He did get a touchdown last game. I don't know if the game log trolls will see that, and that will probably make his ownership a little bit higher. But plugging in a guy at 6,500 definitely allows you to do more with your lineups. So Bateman would be my value pick. Lamar would be the MVP. I think this game, most primetime games do not hit the over. Man, with Andrews, if Andrews was in, I'd say they hit the over pretty easily. With him being out, I just don't know. So I'll probably take the under on this one, but I still think that the Ravens win by 7 and not by 3. I don't have a prediction on the final score. I just know Ravens +7. So if I was betting the game in Vegas, I would gladly take the game and the points, the +3. That seems like a no-brainer against the Chargers. I've watched the Chargers most of this season and am not impressed. So yeah, what are your predictions for the game? Who's your MVP, value play, and prediction for the game?
I think I'm going to go MVP would be Lamar Jackson. Take the cheap way out as well. However, if he doesn't make it, I can see Justin Herbert just from the fact that he'll be playing behind and throwing a lot, and then there's always potential. He's going to get a few touchdowns, I see. So if he can get up there, as long as he can, not have those interceptions, not have those fumble issues and things like that, then I can clearly see him up there as well. Then moving on to the value pick, I'm just going to choose one of the tight ends from the Chargers. I don't have right now which one it will be. My gut is telling me Everett being the tight end 1, but he is hurt. But I'm just assuming that he's full, good to go. So Everett will be the value pick, but to be honest, I can see really either one of those tight ends just being at 7K. So all it really take is a touchdown to basically put them and seal that deal there at the 7K. Final score, over/under sitting at 48. You know what? I'm going to go over. I'm going to go 30 to 24. 30 to 24 Ravens. Just because I want some field goals from Tucker. So
30-24. So just a little, well, okay. I was going to say fun fact, only one team has scored 24 points, and that was Arizona. But Cleveland did score 27 on them. So yeah, twice that's happened. And again, the Chargers do, I mean, I was shocked when I saw Justin Herbert's numbers. Only 5 interceptions to 17 touchdowns. I mean, that's definitely solid. So nice. So hey, we're fine. We're different then. You got the over. I got the under. I got it 24. Oh man, 24-13 Ravens.
24-13. All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and end this one. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure, like I said, hit the like, subscribe so you don't miss these. We cover every Thursday night and Sunday night matchups. We give you as much information as we can for you to make the best decisions you can, and also we provide our lineups and our thought process. So if that's not enough, let us know what we can do or what you would like to see, and we can try to incorporate that in to these shows. So with that, you guys, take it easy.
Good luck.
Good luck.